Hello to those of you that are online already. We're just going to give it a few minutes just to settle in, take a few breaths. I love bluebells. I love bluebells and bluebell woods. Right, I'm just going to make sure I'm all in shot. And I just need to kick my dog out of the room. Out. He's tapping at my door. Right, so welcome. And if you're just joining me live or if you're joining me on the recording, my name's Julie Ford. I can't confess to be a world-class painter, but I love doing it, and I have a series of just nice countryside and gentle paintings that I like to share and paint along with other people. And one of the things that I love about the Wednesday evenings is you get to paint along or just watch and learn from my mistakes, because of course practicing is the best way to learn. It's not about creating the best piece of work. It's about playing with your paper, your colours, the water, enjoying the experience, and actually, in this day and age, just distracting ourselves from the stresses and strains of life. So I'm hoping to keep it to just under an hour. And tonight we're going to be doing this bluebell scene. I do love a woodland bluebell scene. If you haven't got the photograph, in the notes you can go into the Google album and there is the reference photo and also a photograph of these colours. So these are the colours that I chose because I think they reflect best how we can manage these lovely purples and blues. So we have a phthalo blue, which is quite a bright greeny blue, and this mixed with this lemon yellow will give us these limey greens. Then we have an ultramarine, which mixed with the yellow will give us more of these sagey greens, and also we have these lovely purples that we make with this rose. The one I have is a Sennelier. It's actually Rose Madder Lake. There are so many different pinks around, but this one particularly is very pretty. I have a lavender, but I appreciate that most people won't necessarily have a lavender. I might cheat with it at the end, but we'll see. I painted a similar picture recently in gouache, and I do find gouache much easier because if you paint too light, you can go darker on top and vice versa. But I might do a gouache version next week. That might be fun, so you can see the comparisons. The other colours that we have are raw sienna, burnt umber and raw umber. And if I find I can't quite get my darks dark enough for the trees, I will be resorting to some neutral tint or Payne's grey. I'm all about making life easy for yourself. So the paper I'm using tonight is this Bauhong, if that's how you pronounce it. I think I got this from Meaden. Yeah. And this is a gummed pad. People often wonder how these work, but there's a gap between the pages up here that's not gummed, so you can eventually peel the page off. But what I like about these is you don't have to tape them down, because it doesn't seem to matter what tape I use. Very often the paper will get damaged. Now in our painting this evening, I'm just going to see if I can put this up a little bit or if it's going to make it really hard for you to see it on camera. That makes it a little bit easier for me. Yeah. So with this painting, we don't have that many bluebells, so we're going to do what I call sexing it up a little bit. We're going to put some more in, and we need to look at these very dark trees can be painted over the whole background. And what I will probably do is start with the greenery of the trees in the background and lift out these lighter areas for the trees. Now, how easy it is for you to do that will depend on your paper. So for me, it's a bit of an experiment as well, because I haven't really tried. I think it's supposed to be 100% cotton, this. Yep, 100% cotton watercolour paper, 300 GSM. So it should be really good quality. I'm going to have it at a slight angle up here so that I can get my water running down the page. And I'm just going to have a look in the comments and see if there's any questions. Right, so who's painting along and who's watching? Just drop a note in the comments. What I'm going to do today as well is we're going to pre-mix our colours, particularly our greens. So there's no drawing. I'm not going to do any drawing in this because I'm just going to pull out the trees where I want them with a clean, dry brush. She says, hopefully. Kathy's watching. Cool. Sue, you normally paint along, don't you? So shall we get going? I'm going to mix up some colours first. So my phthalo, and it's such an incredibly strong colour, and I've got, this is a tube, and it will completely overtake other colours if you're not careful. But it makes wonderful purple, so I'm going to put two little areas together. It makes wonderful purples and wonderful lime greens. So let's mix this with quite a bit of yellow to get a real nice lime green. Can you see how already you've got the variation in that? Now, you always want more pigment than you think you need. I don't really want to dull that down. I quite like the bright colours. I've been looking at John Singer Sargent's work a lot this week, and I really, really love the fact that he used a colour called Viridian, which is not necessarily a colour that I would normally go for. But look at this beautiful, beautiful purpley blue that you can get. So for my bluebells, that's probably a bit... look at this. And then when we dull that down, and when we put some water into that, you're beginning to get some real purples. But if I add in a bit of French ultramarine into that, I get much more of a bluebell mix. So it's worth trying out some of your colours first, but I'm just making up some general mixes. I'm also going to make up a little bit of green with my ultramarine, and you can see how that gives you a very different type of green. Right, it's just a few piles of colour just to get us started. I'm going to put the darks in as we go, so I'm going to start with the lights. So I have on my brush, I've got a load of phthalo actually here, so I'm going to mix over here some of this lime. And I think I'm going to start with the whole thing going into wet. So I'm going to get my bigger brush, which is just out of reach, of course. I didn't actually say which brushes I'm using. I never use many, to be honest. I normally have... I've got a flat, which I didn't have. That's for my water. I've got a big round, actually. I don't think I've got my mop out even, but I've got a couple of thin sort of riggers for twigs and things. I've got a fan brush. I'm not sure how much I'm going to use that, but then really these are the only brushes I'm going to be using, but it does help that I'm working quite small. Pippa's just watching. Oh, crochet jumper. Well, Pippa, if you're in my school community, you'll have to share a photograph of your crochet jumper that you're making. It's a free community to join. I haven't posted as much in there as I was hoping to, but I will continue to add things to it as we go. Last week I did key learnings from what I painted last week, and so for the people that hadn't already done it that were in the group, I think it was quite useful. It's sort of things I would do differently next time. And I'm a great believer in painting subjects more than once, and also in different mediums, because you learn so much each time you do it. You really get to understand your subject. But with watercolour, it kind of helps if you only use the same paints and paper. I mean, this soaks up a lot of water, because it's 100% cotton and it's 300 GSM. But if you're always using the same paper and same paints and brushes, you will get really, really used to what you're painting. Right, so this is some of my lighter. So I'm painting wet into wet. So I want some of the light bits in here, and it doesn't matter too much because I'm going to paint over it, don't forget. So I'm allowing the colours just to mix on my paper. And as I say, I'm going to drop some darks in for my background. There's no sky in this, you'll notice, which is probably quite good because it just makes things more complicated. You will always want more colour than you think you need. So we've got a band of light across here, probably even lighter actually. It's more yellow. There's a band of light going across the back. And then across here. And then we've got some darks at the front. So I'm going in with that sagey green, just to give it a bit of variation. And there's a very dark green in here where my trees are. So I'm going to add in a little bit of that purple to give it a bit of shadow. That comes right across here to the base of the trees. And I am sure I'm going to go, oh, I wish I'd made that much darker. Don't forget, while it's still wet, it's beginning to dry out. You've got to work quickly. While it's still wet, you can work into it. But I think that can be darker. So that was ultramarine with a bit of my yellow. Put a bit dark across here, a bit of shadow. And that's it. I'm not going to work into it anymore because I'm going to end up having nasty old, throwbacks and things. That's it. Now, I want a clean, dry brush. Not dry, but damp. So I'm going to rinse it off, dry it off, and then I'm going to pull out some of these trees in the background. And again, if you're working on good paper, this shouldn't be too difficult to do. You may find it's harder if you've used Thallow. It doesn't always lift up, but we can always go back in at some point. Actually, I'll put that in there, but I don't want anything in the middle. And yeah, as I say, put some gouache over it. I'm not a purist, you may have noticed. This nice diagonal across it's actually a good composition technique. if I pick the light out here, then I can put the dark in once it's dried. This is also giving my background a bit of a chance to dry out. I was doing, this time last year, I was doing Plen April, it's called, where you have to paint something every day for 30 days. And I actually went to a Bluebell Wood and did it in situ, and I really enjoyed it. And I was so looking forward to doing it this year. And because I was still in Portugal at the beginning of April, I completely forgot. And I was really gutted that I'd missed it. Maybe I'll have to do my own plein air May something. Right. So can you see how that's working? Right. So I've pulled out some trees. So I need to put my bluebells in here. So I'm going to pull out some area here and a little bit at the back for my bluebells. There we are. It's just another way of doing it. There's a log down here as well. So these diagonals work quite nicely. This is quite a good one for straight edges. There we are. See if I can get any more out of these. So you should have your 2 pots of water, one for cleaning your brushes and one for dipping your clean brush in before it goes into the next colour. Right, so I'm going to try and drop in, you notice. You might want to wait until I've done it and see if it works. Some of my bluebell colours. It looks like I might have stained the paper too much. We'll see. They're in shadow over there. Okay, we might get got away with it. Not quite as bright as I would like, but let's try a bit more pink in that blue. Oh, that's a bit gone too red now. Gone very muddy actually. Right, let's just get a little bit of that pink again. So it's just trying to mix the colours that you want. Just allow that to come down here a little bit. Yeah, I may have to use some well, let's see if I can lift any of that out still. I was going to say I might have to use some gouache after. I don't like using masking fluid. I think we might have got away with that, you know. I think we might have done. So this has almost dried. So I'm going to have a look at going in with some darker greens. So I'm going back into my phthalo. With my yellow. And that gives me a really kind of rich green, but it's not a very natural green. So in order to naturalise it, I'm going to take a little bit of this colour. That's better. Can you see how that makes it a bit more realistic? And I want to put in some of this shadow. It's still wet, which is fine, it's still running, but I like this colour with those mauves. That looks quite pretty. And I'm going to tap in some here. I don't want it to run all the way over my trees. It kind of comes down to that green band. So still a little bit. Still a little bit damp over here. I'm just allowing that dark to kind of pick out some of the edge of the trees. A little bit of negative painting maybe in the back. There we are. And you can always soften the edges with a bit of water, just so it doesn't look too hard. That's it. Okay. I've got some dark shadow up here. I'm just touching that in lightly, not quite as much detail as over here. And it's quite a bluey green, so it does actually look like it's a bit in the distance. There we are. Now I can go back in afterwards and do a little bit more here, but we'll see if we need to. Just going to see if this will lift out any more. Okay. Right, I'll let that dry for a little bit and have a look and see if anybody's put any comments. Oh, thanks, Pippa. I'm going to join the group. Lovely. Actually, looks all right, doesn't it, on the screen? Looks quite effective. So now I want to put in some of my trees, but I don't want my colour to run. So let's see if it's dry enough yet. So in order for it not to run, I need my mix to be fairly dry. So my brush is fairly dry. It needs to be fairly thick. So let's see. Yeah, that is probably not going to run there. I'm going to paint over some of it, don't forget. And I've got to work out where my light's coming from. It's coming from the right hand side. So the light will be over on this side. So my darks will go in over on the other side. I might have too much colour in that one still, but we'll see. See if that will lift out. Yeah, the phthalo is quite staining, so that's probably why it's picked up a bit of that. I can come back and lighten it up with a bit of white afterwards. That's fine. Oh, my water's getting dirty. It's that phthalo. Right. I want this a little grayer, so I've done the same colour, but I've added a little bit of that mauve from the flowers in. So just to make it a little bit more interesting. We just like to play, don't we? Okay. Oh, okay, it's coming along. Coming along. I like that grey actually. So it's a slightly different colour. Actually, if we darken up the background, we can get away with using the green, the very pale green on the paper as the light colour. There we are. There's one in the middle, but there's probably quite a few more, but the other ones can be darker. A bit more. There we are. Okay. Right. Oh, actually, I want a little bit more of that colour for this down here. I might paint over it, but it's a bit of a old log, for want of a better word. Right, I've got a little bit of burnt umber. I'm going into this colour. It's actually, I'm going into some of the red that I had earlier, just to drop in some dark along the base of this. That's it. And I'm going to see if I can scratch out a little bit down there as well. So I've got a craft knife, just to show you. You might not have anything with you, but do this sort of thing. So if in this corner, let's just have a go with this. I'm going to mix up a darker, much darker green with my raw sienna. I'm going to put some in here. I want it fairly wet. And then I'm going to tip it up a little bit. Don't do too much, but give you an idea. I'll just blot a little bit out just for that corner. Okay. Plus, she says, I'm going to use a smaller brush. Oh, there we are. And drop in again a little bit of something darker. So I'm mixing into that really dark green, I'm mixing a bit of brown, and I just want to drop along the edge of this lump of wood or whatever it is. There we are. And I might join some of that up so that we've got little bits of, yeah, use your finger, that's fine. Right. No, I want to put some, what do I want to do? Put some darks over those branches, and this is where it's quite hard to go dark enough, so let's see how we can do. I want to leave some space. That's too green, so a bit of raw umber, which is my dark brown. And I'm going to add in a tiny bit of ultramarine to that. That should give me a nice dark. That's better. Alright, so this is actually one of the darkest trees. And chances are I'm going to have to go darker again a bit later on with that. But I want to soften that edge, so I'm going to just dry my brush off a little bit and just allow that to run a little. That's it. That works quite well. Okay. A bit more of that dark. If you use your blue, your ultramarine, your burnt umber, you get a really nice sort of grey that you can move from one sort of, it could be a bluey grey and it can be a browny grey. I've put that on the wrong side, but never mind because it's behind the other tree. So it just gives it a bit of variation. That's fine. Pop a little bit of dark on one side. That's it. That's quite green. Don't want it that green. Get into my brown. Still very green. And that is still, that's a bit better. There we are. Okay. Oh, I'm getting warm. Oh. Thank you, Kathy. Saying it looks lovely already. These things are so hit and miss. You never know when it's going to work and when it's all going to go completely pear-shaped. So, but that's why I think it's good to watch people like me that don't get it right all the time. Because when you've got these fantastic artists, right, I want that to be a bit greyer. So let's get some more blue. That's it. I'm just going to soften the edge of that with a damp brush. That's it. Now this is very dark, this one. So I need to mix up my burnt umber and a bit of ultramarine and a little bit of this very dark purple. These colours, because I'm using professional pigments, you need such a tiny amount of paint to get significant darks that it can be quite hard to actually control. It's the darkest, biggest tree there. That comes down into here. Some twigs going off in that direction. That's all right. Add in some more trunks and things behind. Where do they go? Right, so we want some thin ones. I'm going to come back with one of my very thin line brushes in a minute. So we've got some real dark areas back here, but I'm not sure how dark I actually want to go over here. So I'm just using a bit of dry brush technique here, just to sort of pick out the bark on some of these trees. And a few bits in here. A bit of water in that colour. And some thin background ones. How's that looking? It's easier for me to see it on the screen. Right, now then, I'm going to use some dry brush kind of technique. So that's too wet. Right, so let's get some of this yellow. And just tap some of this green. Not everywhere. A bit more yellow there. Okay. I want some of it to kind of run in together, so I'm going back into some of my sagey green mix. It doesn't matter too much if your colours run, I don't think. I think that looks, it kind of looks like it's coming a bit more forward, doesn't it, than the bluey greens at the back. That's the idea. Now, I'm going to try to, actually I've got a shadow coming across here, so let's get that in. So that is that dark blue, comes right across here, in actual fact. So I'm just using my brush on its side. I'm going to drop some other colour in there as well, just because I can. Right. Now, can I save these bluebells? So I'm going to go in with my ultramarine and my pink, but I want more pink than ultramarine because I don't want to kill all of that pink. Gradually adding colour in. Not sure about that. My colour's looking a bit dirty. So let's try. Alright, that's a nice colour. Yeah, I wish I'd kept my some of my paper white, because I would like to have a really light blue in there somewhere. But it's all right. I'll have more detail at the front than at the back, so I'm going to put in some grasses at the front, just changing my colour up a little bit. So I'm using the same sorts of colours, but I'm just varying the amounts of blues and yellows. So I'm still sticking just with those colours that I had. I quite like this. I think this is looking all right, actually. Trick is not to overdo it. Right. I think I might be able to put a little bit more colour at the back there. Not sure, let's have a look. Oh, yeah, it's all right. And a little bit under here. Okay. Now, ooh, 10 past 8. We've had a shake. I'm just having a look. Nobody's made any comments. I need to put some darker stuff in here. So let's mix up another green. Well, I'm just mixing some of the greens together, to be fair. And we've got some much darker colours here. What's that going over? Not all of it, but some of it. Because that's still a bit wet, some of it's running into each other, which is nice. Stick with my same colours, my same blues and greens. This is much darker even. There we are. It's looking better. Now, I want to put in some fine trees and branches and things like that. So I need to make up something very dark. So I've got my ultramarine, my burnt umber, which gives me this very, very dark. So this is still wet actually, so look, that's running nicely. And this is the advantage of having good watercolour paper, because it doesn't dry quickly. It's workable longer. It also depends where you live, of course. If you live in hot climes, as you know, that is okay. If you live in hot climes, it's going to dry much, much quicker. And I think and I say this, I think every week, but with watercolour, we often don't go quite dark enough. It's quite hard to make sure we go dark enough. Right, so we need to, and this is textured paper, So it's harder, don't forget, with textured paper to get straight lines. So when you're doing this sort of thing, you've got to have a little bit more paint on your brush. Otherwise it just skips over the surface of the paper. I'm not following any picture doing this, I'm just playing really. Put a dark tree edge in there. Don't really know why. It's got quite dark over in this corner. So, make that darker. There we are. Right, how are we doing? A bit more there. We can have some going off. I might just lift out with a small flat brush. I might just lift out a couple of little bits of trunk. Let's see what we've got. So I've got a little flat. You don't have to do this. I'm playing, I'm experimenting to see if it will work. So dry it off a little bit. I don't think it's going to work. It's just making my paper buckle. So don't worry about that. There we are. It's fine. Mustn't leave my brushes in water, but I have. Well, I've got a little rigger here, just for some more little. I think the more random, better. How are we doing? I think probably. Now down here, I'm just going to get a little bit of this dark green. Just put a few. Doing this with a rigger on its side. Get some grasses. Don't want too many. Don't want it all to look the same. I want it to look a little bit darker at the front though. So yeah, just adding a little wiggle there. And I can go darker here. My shadow's not nearly enough there. So going back to my original green, I want to do it with the rigger, determined to make this darker so it looks like a proper shadow. That's it. And under the trees will all be dark. Little, Not much light under here at all. Drop a little bit of a different colour in there. A little bit of this. It's too, ugh, gosh, what have I done there? It's too purpley. Oh, look, I just want to add a little bit of, couldn't resist, could you? Just couldn't resist putting a little bit of dark purple in there. Can't help myself. Right, in hindsight, I would, she says, have protected some light blue areas. So that I had some very light blue. Just tidying up some of this. Some of these need to be a bit darker because these are very dark. Darker. I think. Have a look. I'm just going to stand up and you'll see my camera wobble. I'm just going to stand up and have a look at it from above. I think I probably shouldn't fiddle, but I just want to soften. Oh, no, that's completely. Yeah, just give that a bit of variation. Oh, that's it. That'll do. And I think, she says as she doesn't stop fiddling, but I think I'm going to call that done. I'm ahead of time. Look at that. Now, if I were thinking about adding gouache, see what you can do is you can get one of your colours and add it to white. So I've got some white here and I've got, so you see you can add on top if you want. Put some little light bits in. And, oh, having thought about that, I've got that white and I've got that lavender. So this might help. Oh, look, that is cheating. Doesn't that look nice? There we are. I should have done that. I should have protected it first. But instead, I'm going over. It's actually not gouache. This is lavender watercolour. But basically, it's got white in it. And that's what makes it opaque, which is why it's easy to paint over some of this area. think that's better. Not too much, but I keep saying, oh, I'm not going to do anymore. But that gives you an idea. That's better. I think that's better. And maybe even a few bigger ones down here because they're all a bit samey. So you'd have the odd ones at the foreground, wouldn't you? That's it. I am nearly done. Now I'm done. Step away from the painting. Right. So Sue's going to finish it, Autumn Signet. Sue, thank you. And you'll finish it tomorrow. People be brave. We are very kind. Oh, you find it a struggle and are frequently unhappy with your work. I don't think there's anyone that isn't frequently unhappy with their work. And I think that's one of the reasons I like doing the Wednesday nights, because it just shows everybody that we all struggle together, but often people put their videos on that are all highly edited, or they've painted it a couple of times and they put the best one out there. But I think it's quite nice to see it all warts and all. So thank you very much for your time. I'll leave it on for a little while and turn my sound off. And then if you're still finishing, you've got a chance. I'll zoom in on my own, if I can, picture. Ooh. There we are. And then you can see in a bit more detail what I did. So thank you ever so much for joining me. Thank you, Pippa. I shall look forward to seeing yours when you do it. And yeah, I really appreciate the support on a Wednesday night, so do drop in another time. Thanks, Kathy. As I say, I'll turn my microphone off and I'll leave it on for a little while. Take care, everybody. And if you enjoyed this, please do subscribe or hit the like button or watch some of my other ones. But definitely come and join us on school if you haven't already. Links are in the description. And see you next week. Thank you. Bye.